out the disc or the drum brake for disc brakes this morning. Breaking the lug nuts loose because once it comes off the ground, it's going to be a lot harder to loosen them. Okay, since we have it already on the car dolly, it seems like we can't do it by hand, so we're going to use the big guns here, and we're going to use the power tool to take the lugs off or to loosen them. And so, make sure I'm going the right direction. Okay. And I'm not taking them all the way off, just loosening them so we can jack it up and take the lugs all the way off. Okay, here's Abigail. She's going to be doing most of our work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jack up the car. A lot of times what you'll need to do is find a jacking point. That will be in your owner's manual. In this case, there's a frame rail right there that she's going to put the jack underneath of. And she's going to jack it up, and when it gets the wheel off the wheel jack, we're going to go ahead and put the jack stand under the same frame rail. Okay, now take the jack stand and put it underneath that frame rail, same spot that, yeah, you can do it right behind, but pretty close to the jack. And then that looks like it went up another notch. Okay, so go ahead and slowly let it down. These jacks are a little bit touchy, so turn it a little bit counterclockwise on the handle. Okay, is it down?
I think so.
Okay, so what I like to do after you jack up a car, and just shake it a little bit. Make sure it's not going to fall off that jack stand. You'd rather have it fall when nobody's under it than when somebody's laying under it or working on it. So we can tell that it's pretty secure. It's not going to fall over. And remember, the last lug nut is going to make it want to come off, so we can just set it right on there so it doesn't fall on the ground. And it's probably easiest to leave one of the top ones in until you get the bottom ones out, so that the wheel doesn't start flopping over on you. And these Volkswagens are a little bit more difficult to do this because they have bolt lugs instead of nuts. And so on the lug nuts you'll have the studs sticking out to where you'll set the wheel on. But these, once the lugs come out, your wheel basically falls to the ground. So always try to support your wheel somehow so you can keep it from just falling to the ground. And because I didn't do my job right of breaking these loose, Abby's going to use the power tool to finally take that last one off. Okay, you take this, push it on. You got to pull that back sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't pop on all the way. And go ahead and make sure it's going the right direction. Just give it a quick pull. Okay, that's going... Yeah, that's right. Okay. Go ahead and get down there. Hold the tool tight so it doesn't try to spin in your hand. And you just have to give a little bit of a juice on it. Okay, there you go. There we go. Okay, let's set this wheel aside. Probably right over here in front. So we're going to put this this board under the wheel, so because we're opening up the brake system, we don't want it to get brake fluid all over the floor. I'll scoot it all the way under there. Okay, so what we need to do next is we got two things going on here. We got a speedometer cable coming through the end here, so we're going to have to take the, there's a little clip on here to keep it from spinning, and then we're going to want to take this cap off. So this cap is on here a little tight, so you got to take a screwdriver and a hammer and give it a little bit of a convincing that it needs to come off. So just go around all the edges, and there you go. It's loose, and it looks like the clip was never put on for the speedometer cable, so it was just siliconed on this outside. So now that the cap's off, it exposes the bearing in the nut. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next step here. So on this nut, there's an Allen screw. And I believe I have the Allen screw. The Allen right there. Okay, so now we're going to loosen the Allen screw. It should come off fairly easily. So, and you notice that once you loosen the Allen, that actually starts spinning. You don't want to over tighten those, otherwise your bearings are gonna go out. So go ahead and take the nut off. I believe it's righty loosey on this instance because it's in a front wheel bearing. Because when you're moving forward, you want that nut to rotate in the direction of tighten, not loosen. Let's set that off to the side. We're going to need that later. Okay, and then in this, there's actually a keeper washer right there that is keywayed to that little slot there on the side of that. We're going to want this washer. Everything else comes off, but let's put the washer to the side with our nut here. Okay, so go ahead and pull the drum off. So see this right here? It starts pulling off. We'll just take that and we'll put this over here, and the rest of it can go in the garbage. We're gonna completely replace this portion of it. Okay, now we're taking the keeper springs off here. So basically she has to hold the spring with one wrench and needle nose with the other to spin those little pegs. I don't know what they're called, I'm sorry. And so there's one on each side for each brake shoe. Once that comes off, we'll pull the brake pad or the brake shoes off. Okay, there we go. Now let's go ahead and pull those shoes off. We're not worried about the springs or any of the hardware because we're actually getting rid of the entire system.
If you actually were to replace these, you would want to take off the springs, but we're not worried about that right now.
Okay, hold on just a second. Alright, there we go. The springs are actually fairly tight on these, so it makes it hard to take them off. Probably the easier part is to take them off the shoe. We're going to take off the brake line. Right back here, the brake line. Oh, let's turn on the light.
Is this
the
it?
brake down right below it.
Because
Nope, you're going to want to push it downward. Is it moving?
I think so. I'm gonna...
In this case, we can go ahead and take it off right here. because we're going to be replacing this whole line anyways. Okay, after a little bit of struggle off camera, we found that this is starting to strip out, so I didn't want to spend too much time trying to yank on that. Since this whole line is going to be replaced, I was able to break it loose on the back side of the slave cylinder. So now we're going to take these 4 bolts out of here to take the backing plate off and all the rest of the brake hardware. Pull from the trigger. Oh, looks like it's going the wrong way. Oh, no, that's right. That's right. Okay, now you can hit each one of those. Okay, go ahead and slide that whole bracket off and we'll toss it over in our junk pile. So let's go ahead and wipe this whole thing clean just to make sure that all the grease and dirt, yeah, that one. Get all the grease and dirt out of there. We want this nice and clean when it goes back together. Okay, so now we have a bracket. It's right there. This plate is what we're going to mount our caliper on, and it's marked as L. We've already done the right side, and that goes towards the back, and lock nuts are the ones that we want to use for putting this on. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the 4 short ones and put a lock washer on each one of the short ones.
Are these?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we're going to take our thread locker, and as you take each one, hold on to that, you're going to put a little stripe right there on the top and go ahead and thread it in. Here's another fun step. We've got a old school torque wrench here. We're going to use this torque wrench to torque it to 25 pounds. So the needle here will go in between the 20 and the 30 mark. That there is no 30. Abigail, you want to take a look at that real quick? So you see there's a 20 and a 40. So in between there's a long mark. You're going to want to go between that long mark and 20. There's a smaller line in between the two. So we're going to turn it. We're going to use this wrench to go ahead and turn it to the right until it torques up. And you see there's a lot of play in it right now because it's cinching up against that lock nut. So it's, or not lock nut, lock washer. So it might take a little bit of turning before it actually will torque down to 25 pounds so that you can see it moving. So you can see it's about 20 pounds. Oh, there it goes. Right about there. Yep. Okay, do that to the other 3. Alright, and we're all cinched up. Okay, so now we're going to pack the bearings in this gelatin goodness, high temperature grease. Abigail's going to take that big bearing in one hand. Go ahead and set this down on the ground. Take your finger in the other, put it in the grease, get a big old globby on there and rub it into the outside where all the bearings are. Spin it all the way around. Get another glob and kind of work it into the face of it and see where there's a slot around the inside there. You want to get a bunch in there. This is probably the dirtiest part of this job.
And the most fun part.
Look at that big old smile. Where the
Like
keeper
the whole
goes.
thing, or just...
Yep, just right where the bearing's going. Just, yep. Okay, go ahead and slide your bearing down in there.
This or
The narrow side in first. It will only go in one direction all the way. Okay, and then we'll take this little bearing gasket here, and we're going to go ahead and slip it in here and push it in. This is going to keep your bearing from falling out when you're messing around with it. Flipping this over. I still want to be a little careful with it because we want to make sure that it doesn't drop out. We'll have to start over. Here's another bearing for the outside. You're going to do the same process. Get it all nice and gooey and gloppy.
Okay, I think that's...
Let's do a little bit of a glob on the inside of this rotor as well. You want to be a little cautious about getting too much on the rotor itself. Any of this grease on the brake components are going to damage the brake component, so you want to we'll want to clean off any excess grease when we get there. Go ahead and drop that down in there.
Same way?
Yep. The narrow side inward. And then remember we have this this washer with the little keyway notch on there. We're going to drop that on the outside here, and then when we put this rotor on, we're going to match it up with this keyway. Okay, and so go ahead and grab that other side. I'll help guide it on with my hand, and then hold that washer so it doesn't fall out with one hand.
Like this one?
Yep, hold it with one hand. Okay, and then you'll want to find where that keyway is. You'll need to turn it a little bit. Oh, there we go. Go ahead and turn it until it will slide on. Yep. Okay, hold it there for just a second, and we'll get this threaded, and then we'll have to push this on a little bit tighter because that bearing is real fresh and it's not going to want to slide all the way on there. Okay, push it back a little bit more, and then we'll push the bearing in, and then we'll keep threading this on here. And remember, we don't want to over tighten this, but we want to get it tight enough to where the bearing isn't going to flop around. So we'll want to just work it a little bit. Yep, that looks like about right. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and lock it down. Okay, and at this point, it's probably the best idea to go ahead and clean the rotor with some brake cleaner and a nice clean rag. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take a clean towel, spray some brake cleaner on there, and rub off all the residuals of the grease that we can to prevent the brakes from getting damaged. The next step is fresh from the factory, nice shiny gold. So what we've got here is we've got a little rubber piece in here to keep the brakes separated. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a dry fit to see if we need to put spacers in this. And so what you want to have is you want the rotor to be nice and even right on that line. So you want it centered on the line. So when you put it on here, you're going to put it back here, put it up against the plate, and can you turn the light on and you can see real close here? So right here, as it's sitting right up against the backing plate, it's actually not centered at all. You can see that there's no gap in the back, and it's got about a quarter inch in the front. So you need to actually space it so it fits like that. See that? So we're going to have to use all the washers we have that came with it in order to space it back. Okay, go ahead and turn it off. Be in such a tight space and not much room to show. Basically, what I have to do is put these shims on like this. So these came with the set. I'm going to put 2 on the bottom and 2 on the top. Should give you enough room to make it directly even between the two sides right there. So what I did on the other side is I started on the bottom by just putting the screw through like this and just hanging them right on the edge of that screw, and then threading them in, like pulling this in and then putting it into the back of the plate. The problem is that once you get to the top, it gets a little frustrating because it's really hard to get the top one in and keep those screws on there, and you have to have a thread locker on there as well. So there's a lot of steps to this process that there's not a lot of space to do it in. And these also need to be 25 foot-pounds according to the manufacturer. There's not a lot of room. It would be... There you go. Disc brakes. And then basically what you do is you grab your cap. You can put a little more grease in your cap and slip it on there. The thing about this is this is going to be pretty tight on this because it's a newly manufactured and it's meant to make it stick really good. So you might have to tap it with a hammer around. You're going to want to tap it like that and make sure that the speedometer cable goes through properly. In this case, we'll not show on the video at the moment about getting the brake line on there because there will need to be some bendies going on. It comes in a pretty generic shape, so I'm going to have to do some custom fitting to get it to wrap around the strut there. But there you have it. That's all we're going to do for now. We'll go ahead and wrap that up later and bring to you some other how-tos later.